Beautifully done, Sebastian. I have to say that you have really reached into the heart of that period, and and at the same time, I feel a strong personality of your own that you are applying to the material, so that in many instances you check off the boxes of my evaluation criteria, but you do it in a way that is individual to you. There's there are some general similarities to how you're approaching the material with other entries, but the overall structure and the overall conception are absolutely personal to you. So let's dive right into this evaluation without any further ado and just go right to the criteria. Does the intro set the mood effectively? I would say so, and I'll just take a moment to comment here about the about your sound set that you're using. Okay, I feel that it has a real problem in terms of it's the actual ratio of the dynamics. It feels to me like your sound set or your playback system or whatever it is treating dynamics as volume rather than as projection and intensity, right? So passages in the original mock-up audio that you sent me that are soft have almost no projection, and they're just really quiet. See, they're quiet, they're not soft, they're quiet, right? It's a difference. So you can have a soft texture that has a lot of projection, right? But in this case, it just and then loud was just too loud. So I actually went in and I sort of changed the curve a little bit so that your overall dynamics were a lot richer, a lot more present. But maybe look into how you have everything set up, or maybe into getting a better system. All right, some kind of playback system that's more realistic, because I feel that in terms of you as possibly becoming a professional composer who might need mock-ups in their daily work, say working on media projects or film projects, or working with choreographers or theater projects, that you will need something that is a lot better than that. Okay, all right, so let's get back to setting the mood effectively. So in this case, I felt that the mock-up didn't really let us know, didn't give us that wonderful Brahmsian kind of opening of the Third Symphony. Was it the Third Symphony, I think, or is it one of the movements where it's just all lower winds? So yeah, that feeling didn't quite come through the way that it might have, but it still was great. And just in my mental orchestra, it sounds fantastic, I have to say. So yeah, piano cantabile, yeah, just absolutely no issues at all with this. I think that all of the instruments work beautifully together, and they're well supported. The second bassoon and cellos and so on. So yeah, that all works for me. Now going to the next criterion, does the melody start with elegance? I believe that it does, and look at how wonderfully you have scored out the divisions of bowing here. Just very professional. That'll be easy that'll be so easy to work out for the players that they'll barely have to do anything at the beginning here, except for maybe this slur is completely unnecessary, I would say. Right? Up, down, down, up, down, up, down. Right? And that just keeps everything in the right place. Especially you want the end of this bar to be an up bow as the crescendo gets to its loudest point, right? So that the players have the most amount of push. Anyhow, I don't know. That's all very picky details. And then just making this one nice long slur for your flutes and bassoons. Yeah, and just such a wonderful texture right in here. And that just brings me to the next topic, and that is, natural transition to octaves. You built it in really beautifully. Just, what would Beethoven do, right? From my Pitfalls video. Exactly right. So in this case, you didn't really need the strings to do anything but except for to provide that middle support, right? It's just a wonderful Beethoven trick right in here to have the first violins playing the melody, and then the bassoons below and the flutes above, both in thirds. It's absolutely great. And then here we have our F horns, right? Just playing the fifth to the octave here. Exactly right. See, like everything here is, a completely logical set of pitches, right? I don't think you need to go a duet here with your with both of your F horns, but we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so natural transition to octaves, yes. Expanding without clogging it up, beautifully done, because you're keeping the same natural flow here, right? Another one of our criteria. So yeah, so that is continuing in a really beautiful way. So I just think this once again hits the spot. It's beautifully orchestrated, even if the mock-up is a little weak. Even with the adjustments I made, it's still a little weak. And I like how you're taking pains to tell us who is playing when. This is a little irregular, though. Like you have this reversal of stem direction, or where the beam is. So we're sort of assuming that this is still bassoon 1, but when you throw in the stems going the other direction, some people, like the copyist, might think, wait, is that bassoon 2? What is that, right? So yeah, so just watch out for things like this, because they mess with the comprehensibility, the clarity of your score. And I would even go so far as to have this in first voice with the second voice as a rest, and then separate voices for the entrance of the second bassoon, and then you can go to intervals after that in first voice. Okay, all right, picky, but the main point here is that that the clarinets contrast with the theme, right? Because they haven't been used yet. They haven't been used since back here, right? And here you had clarinets and bassoons in a chorale, right? Now here you have a solo clarinet. So bum, and it's all really logical. Bassoon answering bum, 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 bum. And then here you contrast between your lines really beautifully. Flute dum, and then the clarinet, first clarinet, bum, 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 bum. If I said bassoon just a minute ago, excuse me. Sorry, I just sorry, I got a little distracted there. So yeah, so first or second clarinet. Apologies. And did you feel that harmonic support was required? Yes, you did, and you put that in. And yeah, that's terrific. Really nicely done. So, once again, boxes are ticked. Now here, I feel that this is completely unnecessary. Absolutely unnecessary. Slurring across. So, Sebastian, I'm sure that you have watched my both my Pitfalls video and for this year, and then also the 12 common scoring errors, right? And remember, one of the scoring errors was, be really careful about how you slur across a downbeat from a pickup, right? So here we have our pickup. So if we want this downbeat here to have some bite to it, then you got to stop doing this, right? What is the purpose of that? You really want da, yeah, but there's no downbeat. Da, boom. Da 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 da. I ended up hitting my desk there. Da 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 da. We just have to have a bite here. So and this would be crescendo, right? Crescendo, pushing into it. It makes perfect sense for this to be an up bow and then a down bow, right? And I just can't see any reason for this to slur here or here, right? Don't you want the ta on the downbeat here in the clarinets? And the same thing here. Da ta, not da. You know what I mean? It just there's no shape to it, the way that you've slurred it here. Okay, so yeah, and then once again, like for the balance here, you only need a single horn, right? Like two horns is too much weight. You have recently marked piano in all these parts, right? And you've got a crescendo here. I think, you know, seeing as how we're all headed towards this forte, it mainly works pretty well. I mean, I would almost want you to mark like mezzo forte here, or mezzo piano, or something. Just like I know that it's perfectly acceptable in the way that they, the scoring practice of the day, to just, not even bother marking where things were coming from, and then the players would just kind of start from a mezzo piano or a mezzo forte and just push, or they might even start from piano, but the push would be so quick to forte on the next page here that that it was kind of immaterial, and you still see that in some modern scoring. But I feel like everybody needs to know what they're doing, right? And I really prefer hairpins right in here as opposed to crescendo. It's like the crescendo text. So yeah, it's much more. Yeah, it's much easier to catch, and I feel it clutters up the score less, right? And I think too, like once you get into a row of triplets, you can just mark the first three, the first number three, and then after that they could just all be invisible, right? They don't need to be. They don't need to all be written out. So that also cleans up the score if you are worried about clarity. All right. So, but I mean, the main point is emphatic color of line. Yes, we got octaves in the strings, in the upper strings. We have harmonic density right in here, in both middle or lower winds, and then this push right here in the thirds and everything. It just really, really sets everything up so beautifully for this next section right here. Yeah, so, and, once again, you've really played by the rules here. Like, there are almost no pitches here at all that are going to be stopped or half stops. Like this F right in here, for instance. That'll be, I think that's half stopped, playing F rather than F sharp. Right, but it's one of those notes that is like it's almost, I think some players can just correct it with their lip, right? In which case you don't, and the hand rather than going to a half stop. I'm not sure. I think I recall reading that somewhere, that the F was one of the most flexible of the natural horn notes. So yeah, so it's not, probably today, like modern players, playing on an F horn will have like a completely different strategy and get it completely open, but and maybe even playing a little natural horn, but like specialists might have been able to just make that F sound really clean. But then again, I hear specialists today playing that F, and you really can hear like the half stopping in it. Anyway, I love the portato here. I think that's all great. I love the way that I like the forte here. I'm not sure that you even need the diminuendo, and I don't even think you need the slur, right? Da 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 da, down up down, right? As opposed to da, or even da. What if you just go bam bam bam, soft soft, right? So yeah, I don't think you need the slur. And I don't think you need the portato here, and I don't think you need the diminuendo, right? I think you can just drop to the piano and you'll have way more dramatic power. There are a few choices here, I feel like, in terms of drama, that like maybe I would make a different decision, have a different particular perspective. So, it's all sort of fair, like how people decide to interpret things, because there is really no law here, right? I mean, and especially true after the previous evaluation that I just released from Luis, right? Where he just, he completely changed all the rules and, stretched out bars and added different harmonizations and changed the theme and, So, I mean, anything is possible just so long as the focus is on the orchestration, right? Okay, so all of that aside, I would just say this is done fine. I think that, once again, you don't need this to be slurred. Especially you don't need to slur it across the beat, right? Because you want the ta, right? Because the way that you got it now, you got this ta, ta, so it's like, it doesn't really have any punch on the downbeat the way that you scored it, right? That was one of the problems with the 12 common scoring errors thing about slurring across a pickup. All right, so just at the very least give it some punch by having everybody tongue or bow on the downbeat, okay? And watch out for reversed, reversed stem directions, okay? Because it just, it gives it a different meaning. Like somebody might look at this and say, hey, is there a divisi going on the first violins? Yeah, and I don't like this arrangement of brackets, having the sub bracket on the inside of the main bracket. I think it's better to have it on the outside. Okay, and then here you don't even need a sub bracket. It's just like it's one section. Now here, if you're going to say, C, it's like this is really unclear. C, B horn, it's like almost like saying contrabass horn, right? And then here, and then also B, kind of, there's a connotation there of being B flat in German, right? In German writing. So I think it's, it's almost better to just say, to have it written out C basso and then HN period, and have them on two separate lines. So you'd have your C basso and then HN below. And then here F HN. You really got to tell us what the tuning is for both sets of horns, especially when you're working with natural horns. It's got to know it all the time. Okay, that's my philosophy of engraving. Okay, so all that aside, I feel that this is all pretty worked out, so not a whole lot to say about it. All right, so we're going to So did you notice the organ-like sound right here? That's because you've got an instrument here that only plays the odd-numbered partials underneath an instrument that can play, all the partials, right? Or has the overtones are on all the partials. So when you combine, when you have the clarinet below an instrument that is this warm and projecting in its middle register, i.e. oboe, right? Or let's say if you had bass clarinet below English horn, you would get the same kind of sound. You just have that kind of, it's like an organ stop, right? I should actually go through different octave combinations of woodwinds and just work out all of what are the organ stops and why that is acoustically. What's the acoustic phenomenon? All right. So do you really want this all under one breath? Da. So there's no ta at the end here? Or ta here? Da, ta, ta. Right? You really want it to not have any nuance or articulation coming through in any of this, right? Is that true? And then here you kind of do this ba wah kind of idea. It's it's a real jazzy thing to push from the pickup into an accent like this. Yeah, see, I mean, here, I'll grant you, there's some interesting effects here, some logic to that, but here, you really don't want so much pressure on the downbeat of this bar. So I feel like the more you take away, the more that you take away any kind of down bow here in your violas, or any kind of tonguing in the winds and F horns here. You just really only need one horn here. You could do like, yeah, I would say slur to a unison, and then have your second horn diminuendo out and your first horn crescendo in, and also like give us an arc, like crescendo to where, like how much crescendo? Is it just a crescendo in the bar, or is it crescendo to the end of this bar, or you're going piano crescendo to this forte, right? So shouldn't you have a destination dynamic of forte at the end of these bars, just to kind of really make it clear? Yeah. So hairpins are your friend here. I think this kind of older style, it's making everything very unclear. It's the kind of thing where you get your score back from the conductor and they've written a bunch of crescendo hairpins where you had everything nicely worked out, right? And they've written destination dynamics at the ends of things, and they've actually had their players pencil those in, and guess what? You just wasted everybody's time when you could have already done that and had no raised hands in rehearsal and no pencil work on that part of the score. Not to say that pencil work is evil or that it shouldn't happen or whatever, but it's just that, like, the more of it you can save, the more time that they have to meaningfully work on your score. Okay. All right, so to go back to this, hang on, Mike. So, all right. Okay, my other screen wasn't working. Okay, so let's not get away from our evaluation criteria, though. Fresh new color, yes. Complementary timbre in the horns and violas is nice. Here I would sort of soften the F horns here, right? Because I think that, like, here you're saying mezzo forte, right? And then you go diminuendo, and that's all cool. And then mezzo forte and the violas. I almost feel like the violas could be forte, right? Just to match the oboe and clarinet, and then the horn being under them, rather than the way that it's set up now. The horns would just, the violas are barely adding anything to the horn tone, right? But by making, taking them up and normalizing the dynamic across the board except for the horn, you get a much better result. Okay. All right, so now we get into this. All right, so you watched my my pitfalls, right? So here you're thinking da 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 da. So I mean, yeah, those sort of work, but dividing it up in the other way is probably easier on the player, right? Going, having one player go one group of violins going da 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 da, and the other group going da 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 da. You get a much more regular, and then everybody is able to do da 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 much better, and then bum ba bum ba bum ba bum. It's just much more natural. Anyways, that's my opinion on this. But thank you for tying this. Right, a lot of people are not getting that this should be tied. Okay. Yeah, and this. I feel that this all works beautifully together. All of your reeds here and the lower strings all working together. It's just a lovely tone, especially bringing in the C basso horns and so on. So it's nice. It's especially good that you don't push it too hard yet. Right. And then from here, things really start to take off. So you're definitely thinking ahead to the widening gap. Right, and you are injecting the energy here, right, and that works really, really great. And then here, you've got that sort of, that punch, right? But I think you still could have brought out this this A flat here by having perhaps having your C horn player go from a stopped A flat or G sharp to a G natural, right? It's just just like these same exact pitches, either doubling the cellos or just by themselves, right? Because it just really feels to me that that sort of bite is really intended for a stopped horn kind of a sound. Were it to be orchestrated, it's really one of the most orchestral of any of Beethoven's sonatas. I'd say like the so maybe the was it the Opus 110 or 109? That incredible second movement. Sorry, so I used to know every bar of every sonata, but I've got other things to work on. I don't know if they're more important, but they're definitely more important to my career. So this works great. This yeah, and then like see here, I don't think the bassoon is enough, right? To really give that dissonance. Da da da. And also, right, okay, almost to the point where this should be marked sforzando, I think, or even ad due, just like to get a little bit more weight. Unless you brought in the si basso horn, like I suggest, just one of them doesn't require. Yeah, and here, like, if you really want this to be true to period, I would drop it an octave and just have single quarter note strokes, okay, in your timpani, because Beethoven wouldn't be marking long durations. He would be using the hall, right? If he wanted the pitch to last a half note, he would just hit it as a quarter note, and the hall will give him the half note, right? So there's like no need for you to put a half note here. Okay, so pianoforte, and then crescendo to a fortissimo crescendo. Wow, okay. Almost feel like you should end with a big accent then, right? Just to kind of close things off, just to really go pow, punch the audience in the face. Yeah, I'm just thinking about this, the G, and yeah, so this is all doable. Yeah. Yeah, nice, actually. Yeah, so, yeah, and this is very, very cool. Da 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 da. Really, really nice. And the way that this all builds, I mean, yeah, it's just, once again, you're ticking all these boxes. You spread the harmony out. You compensate for the gap widening. You don't leave a hole, and you don't even trill, right? You like don't even need it. So it works out beautifully. Like I feel that this is another one of those entries where people really captured Beethoven's spirit beautifully. Just this is very, very Beethoven-like. And there are a lot more things that I could go over, but I don't want this to turn into like 2 hour long explanation of what you're doing. But I feel it's really powerful, and a lot of this works beautifully in that 19th century kind of idiom. Okay, so that takes us to the C section, and after all that powerful wind heavy, brass heavy kind of slamming right in here, we need a new quality of tone, right? And the triplets below need to be of a complementary color, right? In order to, like, if you're just thinking of Beethoven's aesthetics, right? And you absolutely do that, right? Your new quality of tone is just soft strings, and I think that works so well. And then here, you bring in the clarinet, right? And here we get our contrasting timbre. I mean, just like it is in my evaluation criteria. Of course, like those are all question marks. It's like contrasting timbre, right? Contrasting accompaniment. Yeah, and this is lovely. Like just how you have a little bit of thickening here that helps to carry through into the upcoming switch over to wind color. You have the support of the violas right here with the bassoons, right? So there's a nice intermeshing here, and I love this one horn note, right, on a sounding G. Yeah, it's just done really, really well. Yeah, so nice. And yeah, and then this little lift up here that takes us right to the contrast, right? Lower winds and strings. Ba dun dun. Right? It's just so great. And then back to the winds. Do 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 do. And then flute. Bop, 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 bop. And this is really great how you dovetail over two pitches instead of just one. I think that that's really effective, especially like going from clarinet to flute timbre. Not that you need to do it all the time. But, like probably the most effective thing for you to have done here would have been to dovetail on the downbeat. Right? It's just way cleaner than what you've scored here. All right. Yeah, and then just, bassoon and C basso horn working together along with the middle strings. It's just, beautifully done. Yeah. Okay. And then, this part contrasts with this part. That's, so character and weight, right? So like they don't have to be the same, but they just have to be, they have to contrast with the lead in, right? So like here the contrast to the lead in was string heavy, right? And here the contrast to the lead in, with this mixed texture is to have like pure winds and horns. And, with just a touch of cello at the bottom. Yeah, that's nice. I mean, you could have almost also thrown in a little bit of timpani here. But one thing I don't understand is if you're going to go down, up, down, why are we going da, wee? And why are you, you're sort of pulling the teeth of your sforzando, right? You know that a sforzando at the end of a slur is going to be done with the gut, right? Not with the tongue. And that is while it does have some power, it doesn't have as much punch, right? So why are you doing that? Why doesn't everybody just go ta, 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 down, up, down, right? What is this? And the same thing here. Why are you disempowering this by slurring into it for some instruments? Why doesn't everybody all line up with their articulation, right? They should, because this is a powerful statement, right? I marked it in red on my evaluation criteria. It has got some muscle, right? Let everything else be slurred and gooey and sloshed together, right? Although, look, if you're gonna do this, like these should match, and this should match that, right? So just end your, you're trying to sort of slur everything together and not, right? It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I would just say have your slurs end here and then start again there, so you have a bit of push on the downbeat here. Right, and the same thing with this. These should join right here, right? Because like here, you've got a sense of meter with your slurring. That's a lot more organized. All right. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but So, okay. Further contrast was what I suggested or questioned on some of these. Handing off instrumental solos, firsts to seconds to violas to cellos and so on. This is really kind of cool the way that you organize this, though. Just to mention this, going to the seconds, going to the violas, going to dropping the octave to the cellos right in here. That's really nicely done. Although, there are other ways of sort of sneakily doing this, but with the strings, but I thought that this worked fine. Almost to the point where like a different way of possibly organizing this would be to continue on just in I see like the logic for all this. You want this E here, right? In it with a string tone, right? Right. So therefore, you can't bring in your violas on the downbeat here. But that would be the smoothest of all, right? Just the violas dovetailing with the firsts right on C here, and just like having the second violins do something else. But still, it's these are real neat solutions. They're not quite as they'll take more work than what I was suggesting before, which is firsts to the downbeat, violas to the middle bar, trading off to the cellos. Right? So just like the fewer seams and the fewer seams, the better, and the more that the seams happen on the downbeat or the middle of the bar, the better, right? Okay, but yeah, this is all really cool. Clarinets and strings, and yeah, nicely cushioned. All right, and that just leaves this. I didn't throw in the repeat here because I just knew that I'd have a ton of stuff to talk about, and I didn't want things to get too long. But yeah, this is really cool. The cellos and the bassoons working together, right? Just cellos and then bassoons coming in right at the the first or second endings, and then leading back to here really beautifully. So yeah, it's one of these things where say I can't say enough about this, but I better say enough because otherwise we'll be here all day. So once again, I really felt that this was a powerful entry. I felt that you ticked a lot of boxes. I've gone through all of that, and I felt your scoring was really logical and very moving. I felt that you had a lot of emotional information, and I thought that the sense of drama was great. And just like my biggest issue really is with the sound set that you're using. I feel it really leads to a lot of underpowered, softer dynamics. That just don't really project very well. Yeah, and I feel that you sort of hogtie yourself on some of these slurs, like slurring across, you don't make things line up. You have places where some parts could be just really emphatic, and then you slur across them, right? Or you slur into a sforzando accent instead of letting the player just go pow with their tonguing. Right? So just some basic things like that. Give us a destination dynamic if you're just going to go piano crescendo and then stop, right? But I mean, the basic organization is pretty great, I would say, and I'm really happy with this. And it's such a keenly powerful conception of the scoring back there, and that I'm just wondering what you will make of next year's selection. Yes, that mysterious 2024 piece that we're all going to be working on, and yeah, so we'll just have to see how that goes. What you think of that? If you are able to participate that year, I would really love to see your contribution. And once again, thank you so much for the time and effort and imagination and craft that you put into this, and for the support on Patreon. It just that really helped me out a lot. All of my supporters out there, whether you guys are supporting on Patreon or you're just like you're just being really awesome in in the comments here in YouTube or in my other social media groups. You guys have been so supportive, and there's a time when I really need it. Occasionally there have been a few flare-ups in some of those arenas, but for the main part, everybody's keeping it cool, and I really need that right now, and I really appreciate that from everybody. So thank you again. Okay, everybody, Sebastian, you guys know what to do, right? Comment, 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 and I'll see you tomorrow.